an organized attempt to build a Negro who would have an investment in the system to pretend to the other Negroes that if you behave, be good, do what we say, that advancement is guaranteed. It's called the American Dream.
The American Dream.
And so we see a series of things that's going to put us in trying to figure out how this network has worked against us. I want to show this little segment from the Memphis article. You can see how I read things. I think I might could clear this up a little bit. You might not be able to see that, but I'll tell you what it says. In the story, it says that in the process of setting up this spy system, Von Demand wanted proof of subversion. He hired Joel E. Spingard, the white board chairman of the NAACP, and made him a major in military intelligence division of the U.S. Army, May 1918. He was not a private, a corporal, a sergeant, a lieutenant, but on sight they swore him in and made him a major. He went from 0 to major.
Damn.
But look at what it says. The document shows Spingard, who remained NAACP chairman during his tenure at MID, that's Military Intelligence Division. That's of the U.S. Army. There's no CIA then. FBI, Gay Edgar Hoover ain't in his spot yet.
Gay Edgar Hoover.
That bitch.
That bitch. I love that man, bro. That's my master teacher right now.
Out in ladies' clothes and shit. Wasn't that something, boy? We've been contained by pathological. And I don't even want to use the word. It says the document shows Spingard, who remained NAACP chairman during his tenure at MID, used his post to obtain critical information for MID, such as a list of the organization's 32,000 members. Now, the first thing Ben Chavis must do, as head of the Negro Association, is repudiate Spingard's adverse impact on the black community, remove his name from their highest medal, the Spingard medal, and do it in 30 days, nigga, as you are with him. You got 30 days, brother, 30 days. Now, Ben Hooks, in the follow-up to this story, stated that the files should not be revealed publicly to protect the depth of the informant networks, which means that there's more to the story. Now, the New York Times ain't done this story because the New York Times has been a long supporter of Spingard. Salzburger, show you right. So we're talking about the major, largest newspaper in the world won't do a story that ran 6 full pages in the Memphis Commercial Register, a conservative white newspaper. As brother brought to my lecture last night, the 1886 edition shows it was owned by Albert Pike. Now, here comes the Memphis Commercial Register, now owned by Scripps Howard Newspaper Alliance, and now they run this story. Just out the sky blue. What else does the story say? It says that Von Demand's assistant was Clyde Tolson, who was Gagger, who was Pitch.
That's interesting.
It says Tolson left the War Department in 1928 to join the FBI. He became Hoover's #2 man by 47, which he remained until Hoover's death in 72. Many of Hoover's scholars believe Tolson and his boss were lovers. It says Tolson for 40 years would keep close contact with Army intelligence. Close contact. See, this may be deeper than we were thinking. Yeah. 69. Yeah, okay. Now, let's look at this. Let's see what else is in here. Let me turn this over. Okay, this is a later version of the story. I just jumped to it since it's here. I don't want to bring this back up. You might not be able to see it well. That's this section right here. It says, this is now talking about in the 60s. We'll just jump up a second. It says here that meanwhile the Army had finished its intelligence outlines on 124 cities with the potential for violence that summer. The outlines included maps with all sensitive areas marked, landing, let me read it here, I'm underlining too strong for this. Landing, let's see what it says here, sensitive areas marked, landing zones, secret storage sites for riot gear, and weapons and files on all civic leaders and known troublemakers.
Damn.
Details of those plans were kept secret from civilian law enforcement agencies for fear of leaks. Still, at least the Army felt better prepared for King. Well, what has Colin Powell been doing with the information? This comes from a newspaper, not from him. And you would think a black man would clean house when he took over. Anyway, that's just another thought. And of course, we know he can't do it. That's right. Okay. Says here, that Robert Moulton got somebody else involved in the story. Says he had 7 chapters in South Africa. I didn't know that the head of South Africa banned Marcus Garvey's newspaper in the diamond fields, blaming him for raising the aspirations of the Kaffers. Oh, this is deeper than we think. And we know that Elaine Locke, the first Black Rhodes Scholar, Du Bois, Emmett Scott and the others sought to compromise Garvey's advancement. Meanwhile, the white man was using them to set up a spy network to watch the other blacks. That's right, they went after Garvey, brother. We owe them for this. Robert Moulton, Booker T. Washington's successor at Tuskegee, came aboard, as did C.V. Ronan. It then says they got help from a man named Robert R. Church of Memphis, Tennessee. Now remember these names, Ronan, R-O-N-A-N, C.V. Ronan, Dr. C.V. Ronan. Also remember the name of Robert R. Moulton. Also remember this name of Robert Church, who I just sat down with a brother from Memphis yesterday, and he told me that Robert Church was the first black millionaire in America. And that Robert Church saved the city of Memphis. Anybody here from Memphis? Anybody from Memphis will tell you that Church Street and Church Park and Church School are all symbols honoring the black man that saved the city from an epidemic of yellow fever in the late 1800s when it was going bankrupt. And this black man has a son named Robert Church, a daughter named Roberta Church, and another daughter named Mary Church Terrell.
Oh.
See, she's kicking up. She hung out with Eleanor Roosevelt, this other crowd. Now, I ain't too good with the Negro stuff, y'all. Y'all understand? This is information. I'm now talking to you where I am. I'm on this investigation. I'm hunting down these connections, laying the framework for the indictments of the Boule as an organization. And this spy story unfolded, and the story has allowed us to be able to trace the members through the story. The story had an adverse impact on the community. So we're in the discovery process. So now remember the name. Somebody say something? Okay, well, all right. Let's see here. Okay, we'll hold that one once that's the Army's find. Want to go back to see if we can find these old boys. Somebody say something about spin guard? Huh? The date of the register story is, to be exact, let's see here. I got the full story right here. Yeah, there we go. Sunday, March 21st.
Well, I gotta buy me a print.
1993, brother. We're talking about the CFR, the Council on Foreign Relations, and all them networks. Now we're coming up with looking into this network. This is the 70-year anniversary issue of Foreign Affairs. Talks about some of the earlier foreign affairs activities, 1922. Talking about individuals, but when we come right over here, found a picture of this guy, the only black man in the Council on Foreign Relations book. W.B. Du Bois, who wrote on the role of racism, the color line, in the origins of the First World War and his legacy in international relations. But what I want you to key to is that is Du Bois on the First World War. Emmett Scott, Special Assistant on the First World War. Robert Moulton, Special Assistant on the First World War. These Negroes at that moment in time were excessively important to the white man. Now let's go to this book here called The Negro in the Making of America by Benjamin Qualls. Just happened to have this on the bookshelf. Sister had this book from one of her classes at Howard, and I looked up Emmett Scott's name in the book. Let's see what I can find about Emmett Scott. In fact, Emmett Scott is the father of Horace Scott, who is the father of Elaine Brown. That shit started coming together. Says here, just a little sidebar, doesn't make her, she didn't do this. Might be some old files around that she could pull out. We won't be ashamed of asking for them. Says here on page 184 of The Negro in the Making of America, it says the following. It says, did the Negro officer and combat soldier maintain high morale despite many evidences of color discrimination? Such a question admits no ready answer. Undoubtedly, thousands of Negro soldiers were bitter about their treatment, and hundreds sent complaining letters to Secretary of War Newton D. Baker, and after, on October 5th, 1917, to Emmett J. Scott, who had been appointed as his special assistant in matters affecting all Negroes. In matters affecting all Negroes. In other words, we're looking at a Boule man being assigned the responsibility to assure cooperation and passivity from the other Negroes in the war, who don't even have the right to ride a bus or pee in a toilet. But you gave them a gun and you sent them overseas because you need backup. So now you got to pick this Negro very carefully. You can't just get any Negro to stand over complaints, because a good processor of complaints, in fact, exposed the depth of the operation. We never heard from Emmett Scott about the spy story, or from Moulton, or from Church, or from Ronan. We never heard from them. And we hearing it now from a white guy. It says that his job was to catalog or specify the complaints that have come to the War Department regarding the Negro, which Scott admitted would be an endless task. Says that the Negro, 2/3 of the Negroes were not in potential fighting forces, they were in auxiliary services. It also says this on page 188. It says the national government took a few steps to boost the Negro morale. Emmett Scott's appointment as Special Assistant to Secretary of War meant to ally unrest among the Negroes. At the time of his appointment, Scott was Secretary of Tuskegee Institute and had in 1909 been a member of the American Commission to Liberia. Now, you got to go back. Marcus Garvey is going to Liberia and kicking ass. He decides that he's going to take Africa by getting his base over here, and he's going to Liberia. He's going to move all down through Africa. But now you got another group of Negroes hooked with the Freemasons that left here and went over there to form a free state, but actually to start American colonial activity. You see, those guys that went over there agreed to be colonists for America. They went to take the country, not to be free black men in a free country.
Man.
But this is important because history has screwed some of these roles so that the tracks are not clear. We're now trying to lay the depth of a premise for a challenge to a group of people, like Vernon Jordan and Mr. Lee Andrew Archer, and Dr. Bruce Lane Ballard, and Dr. Lloyd Thomas Barnes, and Mr. Earl J. Benjamin, and Dr. Garvell H. Booker, and John B. Branch, and Dr. George C. Branch Jr., and Dr. Samuel Chester Brisbane, among others. So we want to lay the premise on them. Ron Brown has been assigned by Clinton to be the nigger in charge of the riots. He's been told to use whatever he can do to prevent a riot. He a Boule too. So it would seem to fit that the Boule was stopping the war of 17 and trying to stop the war of 93. Anytime it's thought that we may go to do something, a certain network of blacks get the assignment. Ben Hooks might be, Ben Hooks was in the Boule. Roy Wilkins was in the Boule. Ben Chavis gonna be in the Boule too. Show you right. Now, let's go back. It says here in this book, and I'm doing this to get these into the record. It says that Scott proved to be a hard worker with administrative ability, though as a former confidential secretary of Booker T. Washington, he was given to seeing the sunny sides of things. After visiting an army camp, he generally reported that the men were enthusiastic and overjoyed, even though he knew it was not true. So what was he doing? He was trying to convince Newton Baker that the nigger in the war was okay. But who is Newton Baker? I looked this name up in a book I had called The Imperial Brain Trust by Shroop and Mentor, the Council on Foreign Relations and U.S. Foreign Policy, put out by Monthly Review Press, New York and London. Lawrence Shroop and William Mentor. You probably never find the book. Very important book. This was the doctor's thesis at Northwestern University. Oh, it was written in 77. Okay. In fact, it says the Monthly Review Press is at 62 West 14th Street in New York. So if it's still there, maybe you might find it. And on page 21, I looked up Newton Baker in the index. It had no listing of Newton Baker's name. But sometimes when you're really on the tracks of something, they might not list the name because they don't want to give the association. But on page 21 it says that several important publications were stimulated by the Council on Foreign Relations staff and published by the Council, but were not products of the study group. The aim of these books was to influence the thinking of the attentive public. 3 examples were Herbert Feiss's Europe, the World's Banker, and accounts by Newton D. Baker of the United States entry into World War I, and by Henry Stimson about his role in the military in the early 1930s. So Newton D. Baker can be traced to an organizational network. And what I offered to you before is that Newton Baker is traced to the same network that Du Bois was, Foreign Affairs. Now remember, when we talk about the CFR, we've done it every time I've been here. This is in that outer circle. In fact, I was with the CFR here, between the outer circle and the inner circle, around here. So Newton Baker, W.B. Du Bois, Emmett Scott, Fulton are assisting this layer like a moat before the castle. These are the alligators in the water who are supposed to keep you from crossing. All right? So we can trace Newton Baker to a network. That's just for one page. That's all he got is one page. Says furthermore, the last moral building appointment by the government was that of Robert Russa Moulton, the successor of Booker T. Washington at Tuskegee, who was to go to France and speak to the Negro troops. Moulton had the ear of the Wilson administration. It was upon his recommendation that Scott got his appointment. In April 1918, Moulton headed a committee of Negroes who visited the the White House on behalf of Liberia. The fruitful call resulted in a $5 million loan to Liberia in 1918. Hey, Reverend Valentine, seen you last night in Washington, D.C. at my lecture, speaking, exciting the audience and shit. So you're right. All right.
I like how you
So it mentions that Moses headed a committee that went to President Wilson. Wilson is the first president ever to leave the United States. First junket abroad ever in 1918. Nobody ever left because they had all been isolationists. No British connection, no French connection. Now the reason I'm making this, I want you to understand. You got a group of white boys, Washington, Franklin, and others, who stole the country, pretended to break away from a group of guys, but were in a Masonic organization sanctioned by the guys back at the mothership. French Lodge, British Lodge. Break away. The breakaway was to start a New World Order, but as soon as they had stole the New World, they started the reconstruction of relationship. With me? So now how do you trick America, who's an isolationist, to go help Britain and to go help France when somebody messed with them? The German. So now you start this process of assimilation into linking the destinies. What happened in 1913 to Jekyll Island? Federal Reserve, which means the Paul Warburg and the James Warburg and the other connections of Rockefellers, etc., who were involved in the building of the central banking system, were linking the money of America up with the Central Bank of Britain, Italy, France, etc. Now, before you can defend a war, you got to link money. See, the G7 links money now. G7. How do they pick G and 7? Those are not arbitrary numbers. And this, every time someone says something international, I got to check with the G7, which must be somewhere in here. G7. G is the 7. And what's in the middle of that Masonic thing? What's the 7th letter of the alphabet? Shit. I don't understand it. So you're right. Now, let's go, okay? Here we go. Now here comes Marcus Garvey. 1 million people, no radio, no TV. Marcus Garvey got more international affiliates than the U.S. government. Got to check it out. Check it out. Marcus is an international move. Remember, the U.S. government was not international. Only certain businesses were. Okay? Now, we got to now link destiny. We got to now unify. Now, remember, Clinton is a Rhodes Scholar. When he won the election, Oxford flew the American flag. That was the culmination of the bringing home of the link-up. Stephanopoulos, Rhodes Scholar, Woosley, CIA, Rhodes Scholar, and Stearns, FBI in waiting, Rhodes Scholar. Just might not mean nothing, other than the fact that Cecil Rhodes ranked next to Adolf Hitler. That's all it mean to me. And I ain't never heard none of them Negroes compel Clinton to give his version about why did he sleep with people. He slept with everybody else. I guess that wasn't no big question. He was a hole when you elected him. And remember, he would have never won unless they had threatened P. Rock's daughter. He would have never won unless they had threatened P. Rock's daughter. So don't forget that. Y'all that got hope when he got elected. That dope for the white man. Hope. But shit that never comes about. Now, Marcus Garvey is making a strong move in Liberia. Marcus Garvey is making a strong move in Liberia. Get the book by Tony Martin, who is being attacked right now, in case you don't know, for asking his students at Wesley College to use the secret relationship between blacks and Jews in the curriculum. The first professor to make it mandatory for a student to buy the book. And he's being attacked right now. Y'all know the story? Y'all got to defend him. Y'all got to defend him. The brother is being attacked. They have assault. The president of the school has repudiated him. The head of his department, Tony Martin, who wrote these books on Marcus Garvey. Tony Martin Negro race first. Tony Martin, Pan-African connection. This brother brought the information on Garvey to the forefront, but he's being attacked right now. He's a professor at a college. What's this, Westerly College? Where's that at? We need to help this brother. He's being attacked right now for putting that book in the curriculum. And everybody who is a part of the secret relationship between black and Jews should rush to his defense, no more than I stand to defend the radio station that put me on. Who else would put you on if you don't defend them when they seek your relationships? Now, Tony Martin does an excellent job of exposing the enemies of Marcus Garvey. In this book by Marcus Garvey and the Visions of Africa, edited with an introduction and commentary by John Henry Clark, with the assistance of Amy Garvey, it has on page 98 a letter that the NAACP printed in its news magazine from the president of Liberia, which said, the NAACP printed a letter from the president of Liberia to the effect that his country would not be used in Africa. Now, what I'm saying is that the president of Liberia called America and said, if you don't give me some money, this is what the Negro element do. Look, what you want me to cool the niggas out, give me something to work with. That's where the grant, the 2-3 jobs, the Rainbow Coalition, all that shit come from. They shaking down baseball now. And look, they're gonna make forever Willie Randolph kiss their ass too, because he just got the first job. Right here in New York. With that bastard Steinbrenner, whatever his name is, owned the Yankees, who got convicted and privately wiped away all his charges. Who fronted Winfield. Oh, y'all seen some of y'all at the game. Now, so these Negroes, Moulton and Scott, get Wilson to put up $5 million to block Marcus Garvey. $5 million in 1917 money. That shit like $100 million today. U.S. government said, we'll give them the $5 million, but we got to approve every penny of it being sold. Even got Firestone, who was the dominant American exploiter of rubber, etc., to kick in a few dollars to help along as well to make sure nobody fuck with their corporation over in Liberia. This was the beginning of a hub of a whole use of exploitation. Now, so we're looking at this element who assisted the white man's spy, were in a nationwide network to stop black liberation. And only thing they all have in common is that they were advisors to the king. Boule. That's all they got in common. There's no other thread that unites them all. The Big Six, as Malcolm called them, didn't know they weren't organized, though he felt their organization. He gave them a concept of unity, but they had one bigger than he thought. But he was on it. Marcus Garvey was on their ass. He knew it. Marcus Garvey attacked British imperialism. Who was that? Cecil Rhodes, Jan Smuts, Lord Rothschild. He put the heat right on the ones we're still chasing today. In fact, we have a Boule breakaway. See, I noticed, brother, when I was studying the Boule, that certain Boule at a different time in their life jumped up and decided to reach their arm to Africa. Like that woman there reaching and pointing at Africa on that picture. But the Boule are confined to domestic activity. Sure, you're right. So when Martin King said, hey, let's go to the war, the other Boule and preachers, etc., said, Martin, don't do that shit. They told him. And if you remember the Eye on the Prize, you got Martin and Stokely Carmichael walking together. The microphone goes to Martin. So what do you think about this demonstration? What you going to do when the white man show up? He say, well, I'm going to turn my other cheek. I'm going to say a prayer. They said, well, Mr. Carmichael, what do you think? He said, no, I'm not thinking like Martin King. I'm going to fight. But the thing was, they were standing next to each other. You see, after a while, the threat became not that Martin was so aggressive, but that Martin was standing around aggressive people. And and that there was a tendency for Martin's dialogue to change. You see, in this spy story, it says that Martin King was accused of sparking violence, but Martin never was for the violence. But they knew that Martin brought enough people that his presence with right chemistry could produce violence as the end product. So the fear was not that he was violent. See, white man dealing with potential. This is how the spy thing works. You heard brother say earlier about how they watch what you talk, how you talk, what you say, how you look, how you stand, confident, inconfident, shaky, scared, fearful, punkish. That's right. So, but they have a formula. The formula is intentions plus capability equal threat. Intentions plus capability equal threat. Free Mandela, intention, capability, got no plane ticket, threat, 0. You with me? You understand? No, that's how I work. There's a tape back there called Spy System, and there's another tape back there called How the Intelligence Community Monitors Networks and Groups. And there's formulas in there. For example, if I'm person A, the speaker, and you're C, D, E, F, and G, how do I reach you directly? No. I reach you through person B. Who's more important here? Person A with the information, people C with the desire for it, or person B, the one that links us together? You with me? So you understand that the role, when brother steps up here and spends a few moments setting someone up for the right to slam the ball in the hoop, his assist makes it happen. I can't slam it if he don't pass it. So in the scheme of things, the one that will bring the ones has a higher point value of threat than the one who may do the thing. You with me? Check into them spots. How the intelligence community monitors networks and groups. There's about 8 of them back there, and about 5 or 6 Spy System 2000. Just some work I did trying to prepare us for dealing with the early warning officer, the guy that sits behind the scenes that we never see, that collects all the informant's information and comes out with a predictability scale about when to strike. And these are based on formulas. So we tell them we go into the Diamond District on Monday, and they stand out there waiting for us, and we don't show. They tell we going on Tuesday, they standing out there waiting for us, paying overtime and shit, and we don't show. On the day we really gonna go, they in such trouble for ordering up extra workers and overtime that when they looked at the same information, they hesitated, and we went and kicked their ass scot-free. Just a little thought, no, not for applause, but I just want you to think. These people are there. You must think how to get past the tripwire. Check. Remember, the white people fled New York not because you kicked their ass, but on the rumor you were coming. Check. All right. Okay, now, let's go back. Right? All right. Now, Garvey is being stopped in Liberia. And the president of Liberia comes out and says, no, not me. I won't be the base for this brother. This book here, the Pan-African Connection from Slavery to Garvey and Beyond, has some excellent moments that deal with, in fact, the chapter is entitled Marcus Garvey and Southern Africa. The reason I picked Southern Africa is because all three, Oppenheimer, Rothschild, and Rockefeller, can find unity in South Africa. Still today, they are the 3 gatekeepers of its destiny. It ain't de Klerk, nor Mandela. You see, as an attorney in 1960, practicing apartheid law. See, if you agree to practice apartheid law, you have to be into apartheid. When they say, well, we ruled, the nigga ain't getting out of jail, then they don't get out of jail regardless of the facts. So, now this is very important. This is the threat that this have a little want some more crowd represents, because Mandela has put a coalition together with the enemy to to come out with 60% of the vote to usurp the PAC and the other revolutionaries on the set. He's going to take the enemy and his group and form a coalition and link their destinies together forever. One cannot win without the other. If the ANC bucks on the whites, then the whites and the ANC lose and others win. So they're linked together forever. The whites still doing the killing. The blacks still don't have the guns. Mandela out of jail. He the freest nigga in Africa. Only. And having waited for him 27 years, he cut sister to enhance his relationship with the white boy who hated and jacked his sister up every day she stood up to defend his name. D. And every time he comes, he carry 9, 10 million on home with him. How come the United African Movement don't have 10 million? And you know what? I looked up the word Mandela in a dictionary of symbols and found out that Mandela was something that was carved in the rocks of what used to be called Rhodesia, Zimbabwe. This was carved into the caves. Mandelas were an integral, elaborate scheme, a labyrinth, which compels opposing forces to a center or a point. A Mandela has a specific meaning that means that you take the worst and the best and merge into a central unit in spite of the differences. The Mandela is a thing. You got to look the word up. That's not what we're talking about now, but right. The name means as much as what he's done. You just right. You check that. It says here in this chapter on Marcus Garvey in South Africa. It says here that the British, and I want to read it directly just to get the quote in correctly, because again,
y'all got a minute and 35 seconds.
Of these oppositions have remained unified and
just
the same.
To let y'all know.
It was the Rockefellers in '76 that put up the first 40 million after the Sharpsville massacre to support the government because it was on the brink of financial deprivation. It was the Chase Bank that did it. It says that the British Foreign Office records, it's page 145. The British Foreign Office records contain certain references to files now officially destroyed, which contain information on the UNIA that the Foreign Office passed on to the South African government. The UNIA leader, Reverend J.W.H. Eason, in 1921 referred to the British Parliament proceedings in which a member of Parliament complained that a black West Indian named Garvey was making the black South Africans too smart. His Royal Highness, the Prince of Wales, also sent his aristocratic prestige to the struggle against Garveyism during a South African tour. In the words of the Sunday Times of South Africa, White, the Prince, quote, warned the Bantu races to beware of the tendencies to mistrust those in authority or to turn to those whose smooth promises have yet to be translated into performance. The cause of all this upset was the ANC's African World, which fumed the Sunday Times and had barefaced imprudence to refer to the imperishable message of His Highness Marcus Garvey. It even went on to say that the ANC's choice of black